It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the air carried the warm buzz of a city going about its weekend routine. Streets were bustling with people. Children laughed as they played by the sidewalks. Shoppers carried their bags full of weekend treasures, and the sound of distant car horns echoed off towering buildings. Among the crowd stood a boy named Malik, a spirited 12-year-old with dreams as big as the city itself. His curly black hair bounced as he moved, and his deep brown eyes sparkled with curiosity and determination. Today was special for Malik. He had saved up for weeks to visit a cultural art exhibition downtown. Art was his escape, a world where colors blended into stories that spoke louder than words. The journey required taking the city bus, something he had done many times before. Clutching his ticket in hand, Malik made his way to the crowded bus stop, heart racing with excitement. As the bus screeched to a halt, the doors hissed open. People filed in one by one. Malik stepped forward, ready to climb aboard. But before he could plant his foot on the first step, the driver's voice sliced through the air like a whip. "Hey kid, where do you think you're going?" The driver, a burly man with a weathered face, spat the words with a tone thick with disdain. Malik froze, confused. I have a ticket," he said, holding it up nervously. The driver's eyes narrowed, scanning Malik from head to toe. There was something in his gaze, a coldness, a judgment that Malik had felt before but never quite this harsh. "Not on my bus, you're not. Get lost." The words stung like a slap. Malik's chest tightened as he struggled to comprehend what was happening. Around him, passengers averted their gazes, some pretending not to hear, others glancing at him with a mix of pity and discomfort. But why? Malik's voice quivered. He didn't understand. He hadn't done anything wrong. The driver sneered. "I don't need to explain myself to you. Now move, or I'll call someone who'll make you move." Humiliation washed over Malik, turning his excitement into ashes. The boy's hand trembled as he stepped back onto the pavement. The bus doors slammed shut with a metallic thud, and the vehicle roared away, leaving a gust of exhaust and disappointment in its wake. Malik stood there, heart pounding, fighting back tears. He glanced around, hoping for some sign of help or comfort, but the world moved on as though nothing had happened. The city that had once felt vibrant and welcoming now loomed cold and indifferent. A part of him wanted to run home, to bury this moment deep in a place where it couldn't hurt him anymore. But another part, fueled by the same determination that had driven him to save for this trip, refused to be silenced. He had come this far. He wouldn't let one man take that away from him. Taking a deep breath, Malik wiped his eyes and looked down the street, wondering what to do next. He couldn't afford a taxi, and walking to the exhibition would take hours. He felt stranded, isolated by an injustice he hadn't asked for. As Malik stood at the crossroads of despair and resolve, fate was about to intervene in a way he could never have imagined. A police cruiser, sleek and imposing, rolled to a stop a few yards away. The officer inside had been watching the scene unfold, his sharp eyes catching the exchange between the driver and the boy. Sensing something wasn't right, the officer opened his door and stepped onto the pavement. Malik's heart raced again, but this time it was fear that gripped him. The stories he'd heard about encounters with police flashed through his mind, each one a cautionary tale filled with warnings. But there was nowhere to run, and he knew he had done nothing wrong. "Hey, kid," the officer called gently, his tone surprisingly warm. "You okay?" Malik hesitated, unsure whether to respond. He wanted to say he was fine, to shrug it off and walk away. But the weight of the moment pressed down on him, making it impossible to hide the truth. "No, not really," Malik admitted quietly. The officer's brow furrowed as he approached. "What happened?" Malik took a shaky breath and recounted the incident, his voice steady despite the emotions threatening to spill over. The officer listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to quiet resolve. "That's not right," the officer said firmly. "Come with me. We're gonna fix this." Malik blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" "You'll see," the officer said with a reassuring nod. "Hop in." Malik hesitated for a brief moment before climbing into the cruiser. The seat felt strange beneath him, a mix of fear and hope swirling in his chest. The officer radioed a message back to dispatch before pulling away from the curb. As they drove, Malik couldn't help but wonder, could this really be the turning point of his day? What did the officer have planned? One thing was certain. This ride was already proving to be far more than he had ever expected. As the police cruiser navigated the bustling streets of the city, Malik sat quietly, still trying to process the events of the last few minutes. The officer, a middle-aged man with kind but focused eyes, kept his gaze on the road. His badge glinted under the afternoon sun, and his demeanor radiated calm authority. "You got a name, kid?" the officer asked, breaking the silence. "Malik," he replied softly. "Nice to meet you, Malik." "I'm Officer Daniels," he said with a reassuring smile. "What happened back there shouldn't have happened. I'm sorry you had to go through that." Malik bit his lip, unsure of what to say. Why did he do that? "I didn't do anything wrong." Daniels sighed. "Some people carry around their ignorance like it's a badge of honor. It's not about you, Malik. It's about them and their own twisted way of seeing the world. But today, we're going to show you that not everyone thinks like that." Malik nodded, his chest still heavy with the sting of rejection. Despite Daniel's words, he couldn't shake the embarrassment he had felt standing on the sidewalk, with strangers watching but doing nothing to help. "I just wanted to go to the art exhibit," Malik said, his voice trembling slightly. "I saved up for it. I didn't think it would be this hard just to get there." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Well, Malik, you're getting there. And we're going to make sure you get there the right way." The cruiser pulled up at a red light. Malik looked out the window, watching as people hurried across crosswalks and cars zipped by. He couldn't help but wonder how many others had experienced moments like his, times when they were judged not for who they were but for what they looked like. Daniels seemed to read his thoughts. "You know, Malik, I became a cop because I wanted to make a difference. I grew up in this city, and I saw a lot of things that didn't sit right with me. I figured if I was going to complain about it, I might as well do something about it." Malik glanced at him. "Do you think things can really change?" Daniels nodded firmly. "Absolutely. Change happens when people stand up and refuse to let the bad stuff slide. And sometimes, it starts with something small, like giving a kid a ride when someone else wouldn't." The light turned green, and the cruiser moved forward. Malik's heart felt a little lighter, but questions still swirled in his mind. What would happen to the driver who had treated him so unfairly? Would he face any consequences? And why had no one else spoken up when it happened? As if sensing Malik's concerns, Daniels said, "We'll deal with that driver later. Right now, this is about you. And I think you deserve something better than just getting dropped off at that exhibit." Malik frowned in confusion. "What do you mean?" Daniels' eyes twinkled. "You'll see." A few minutes later, they pulled into a small parking lot near the city square. Daniels got out of the cruiser and walked around to open Malik's door. "Come on," he said. Malik followed him, curious but wary. As they approached the square, Malik's eyes widened. A group of uniformed officers stood waiting, their vehicles lined up neatly along the curb. The sight was both impressive and intimidating. "What's going on?" Malik asked, his voice filled with wonder. Daniels grinned. "We're giving you a proper escort, Malik. Front row treatment, just like you deserve." Malik's jaw dropped. "For real?" "For real," Daniels confirmed. "The whole department heard what happened. We're not letting that be the end of your story today." Tears prickled at the corners of Malik's eyes, but he blinked them back. This was more than he had ever expected, a moment that turned humiliation into triumph. As the officers formed a procession, Daniels placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You ready?" Malik took a deep breath, his heart swelling with gratitude and pride. "Yeah, I'm ready." The sirens blared, not in warning but in celebration, as the procession made its way toward the art exhibit. People on the streets stopped and stared, some even clapping as they realized what was happening. Malik sat in the front seat of the lead cruiser, a smile breaking across his face. For the first time that day, he felt seen, not as a problem or an outsider, but as someone who mattered. As they approached the exhibit entrance, a crowd had gathered, drawn by the spectacle. Malik stepped out of the cruiser, head held high. Daniels gave him a thumbs up. "Go enjoy your day, Malik. And remember, you're worth standing up for." Malik nodded, his voice steady. "Thank you, Officer Daniels, for everything." As Malik walked into the exhibit, the weight of the earlier incident lifted from his shoulders. He realized that while prejudice still existed, so did kindness and justice. And sometimes, it took just one person to make all the difference. Malik's heart raced as he walked into the vibrant art exhibition. The walls of the spacious hall were adorned with masterpieces bursting with color, form, and meaning. The atmosphere smelled faintly of fresh paint and creativity. For a moment, all the tension of the earlier incident faded away. Art was his escape, and now it was right in front of him. Still, Malik couldn't completely shake off what had happened. The words of that bus driver clung to him like shadows. Even with the triumphant police escort, questions lingered in his mind. Why did people think it was okay to treat someone differently just because of the color of their skin? Why had no one else spoken up when the driver denied him a ride? As he wandered through the exhibit, absorbing the stunning paintings and sculptures, Malik's mind drifted back to Officer Daniels. He had mentioned that the driver would be dealt with. Malik wasn't sure what that meant, but he hoped it would lead to something good, not just for him but for anyone who might face a similar situation. Outside the exhibit, Officer Daniels was already busy. After dropping Malik off, he had driven straight back to the bus terminal, determination etched on his face. The police department had a firm policy against discrimination, and Daniels intended to see that justice was served. Daniels parked near the terminal and radioed for backup. Within minutes, another officer, Sergeant Rivera, arrived on the scene. Rivera was known for her no-nonsense approach and a deep commitment to fairness. "You sure about this, Daniels?" Rivera asked as she stepped out of her patrol car. "Absolutely," Daniels said. "I saw it with my own eyes. That driver needs to be held accountable." Rivera nodded. "Let's handle this by the book. We'll pull the security footage, interview witnesses, and make sure this doesn't get swept under the rug." The two officers entered the terminal and headed straight for the supervisor's office. The supervisor, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard in hand, looked up as they approached. "Officers, what can I do for you?" she asked. Daniels explained the situation, detailing the driver's behavior and the need for an investigation. The supervisor's expression hardened as she listened. "That's unacceptable," she said firmly. "We don't tolerate that kind of behavior from our employees. I'll pull the footage right away." Minutes later, they were reviewing the surveillance video. The footage clearly showed Malik approaching the bus, the driver's hostile body language, and the way he had blocked Malik from boarding. The audio captured the cruel words the driver had spoken. Rivera shook her head. "That's all the evidence we need." The supervisor sighed. "He's been with us for years, but this crosses a line. I'll make sure disciplinary action is taken immediately." Daniels leaned forward. "I appreciate that, but it's not just about discipline. We need to set a precedent that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated. Maybe it's time for some diversity and sensitivity training for your staff." The supervisor nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We need to do better." As the officers wrapped up their investigation, Rivera turned to Daniels. "You did good today. Standing up for that kid. That's what this job should be about." Daniels smiled faintly. "It's what we all should be about." Back at the art exhibit, Malik was beginning to feel a sense of peace. The art spoke to him, reminding him that beauty could emerge from chaos. As he stood before a particularly striking painting, a swirling mix of blues and golds that seemed to capture the essence of hope, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning, he was surprised to see Officer Daniels standing there, a warm smile on his face. "Hey, Malik," Daniels said. "Enjoying the exhibit?" Malik grinned. "Yeah, it's amazing. I figured you'd like it," Daniels said. "But I wanted to check in and let you know. We handled that situation. The driver's been reported, and his employer is taking action. They're also implementing training to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Malik's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Daniels confirmed. "What happened to you wasn't right, and we made sure it didn't go unnoticed." Malik felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for everything." Daniels crouched down to Malik's level, his voice steady. "You stood up for yourself today, Malik. That's not easy to do. Remember that you've got a voice, and it matters. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." Malik nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "I won't forget." As Daniels stood to leave, Malik watched him go, feeling a renewed sense of strength. The weight of the day had lifted, replaced by a determination to face whatever challenges came his way. The art exhibit had given him inspiration, but Daniels' actions had given him something even more powerful: hope. The next day, news of Malik's story spread throughout the community. Social media was abuzz with posts about the young boy denied a simple bus ride, only to be escorted in a celebratory police procession to his destination. The story struck a chord with many. Some were outraged by the driver's blatant discrimination, while others found hope in how Officer Daniels had turned the situation around. Local news outlets picked up the story, interviewing Malik and Officer Daniels. Malik, nervous but determined, spoke from the heart during the interviews. "I just wanted to go to the art exhibit," he said. "What happened hurt, but I'm thankful for people like Officer Daniels who showed me that not everyone is like that driver." Daniels, standing beside Malik, added, "This isn't just about one incident. It's about making sure everyone is treated with dignity and respect." Malik's courage reminds us that when we see something wrong, we need to act, not just as police officers, but as people. The bus company released a formal statement apologizing for the incident. "We deeply regret the actions of our driver and want to assure the community that immediate disciplinary action has been taken. Additionally, we are launching comprehensive diversity and sensitivity training for all our employees to prevent such incidents in the future." The company's CEO reached out personally to Malik and his family, inviting them to the headquarters for a formal apology. Malik's parents were initially skeptical, but they knew this was an opportunity to advocate for positive change. When they arrived at the bus company's office, the CEO greeted them warmly. "Malik, I'm truly sorry for what happened to you," she said sincerely. "No one should ever be treated that way. I want you to know that we're taking this seriously." Malik, holding his mother's hand, looked the CEO in the eye. "Thank you," he said softly. "I just hope it doesn't happen to anyone else." The CEO nodded. "Neither do we. That's why we're making changes. And I'd like to invite you to speak to our staff during one of our training sessions, if you're comfortable with that. Hearing your story firsthand can make a big difference." Malik's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? Speak to your staff?" His mother squeezed his hand. "You can do it, Malik. You've got a powerful story to share." Malik took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll do it." A week later, Malik stood in front of a room filled with bus drivers and other employees. His hands trembled slightly as he held the microphone, but he remembered Officer Daniels' words, "You've got a voice, and it matters." He took a deep breath and began. "Hi, my name is Malik. I love art, and I was just trying to get to an exhibit when I was told I couldn't ride the bus. That hurt a lot because I didn't do anything wrong. But then Officer Daniels showed me that there are good people who care. I hope sharing my story helps you see how important it is to treat everyone with respect." The room was silent as Malik spoke, his words raw and honest. By the time he finished, many in the audience were visibly moved. The CEO stepped forward, thanking Malik for his bravery. "This young man has reminded us all why empathy and respect matter. Thank you, Malik, for helping us become better." After the session, several drivers approached Malik, expressing their gratitude. One driver, an older man with kind eyes, said, "Thank you for speaking up, kid. You've opened my eyes today." As Malik and his family left the building, he felt lighter, as though a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He had turned a painful experience into a moment of growth and learning, not just for himself, but for an entire company. Officer Daniels, who had accompanied them, clapped Malik on the back. "You were amazing in there," he said. "Told you your voice mattered." Malik grinned. "Thanks for believing in me." The ripple effect of Malik's story didn't stop there. The local community rallied around him, organizing events to promote inclusivity and respect. The art exhibit even dedicated a special section to stories of resilience and courage, featuring a painting inspired by Malik's journey. The painting, a vibrant swirl of colors symbolizing hope and transformation, was unveiled at a ceremony attended by Malik, his family, Officer Daniels, and countless supporters. Standing before the painting, Malik felt a sense of pride and fulfillment. "This is just the beginning," his mother whispered to him. Malik nodded. "Yeah, I think so too." As the crowd applauded, Malik realized that while he couldn't change the past, he had helped shape a better future, one where voices like his were heard and respected. Months passed, but Malik's story continued to leave a lasting impact. What had started as a moment of humiliation had blossomed into a movement of awareness and change. The bus company fully implemented its diversity and sensitivity training, with Malik's story as a central example of why empathy and respect matter in everyday interactions. The training sessions became more than just formalities. Drivers shared stories of their own biases and how they were learning to unlearn harmful stereotypes. The company's CEO reported a noticeable cultural shift, with employees embracing the idea of treating every passenger with dignity and compassion. Malik, once a quiet and reserved boy, had grown into a confident young advocate. He was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and even local government meetings. His message was simple but powerful. Respect should be a given, not a privilege. One memorable moment came when Malik was asked to give a keynote speech at a youth leadership summit. Standing on stage before hundreds of young people, he spoke from the heart. "I used to think my voice didn't matter," Malik admitted, "but I've learned that it does. All our voices matter. And when we stand up for what's right, we can change the world, even if it's just one bus ride at a time." The audience erupted into applause, and Malik's smile was radiant. Back at home, Malik's parents watched with pride as their son blossomed. His mother often marveled at how much he had grown. "You turned something bad into something beautiful," she told him one evening. "That takes courage." Malik nodded thoughtfully. "I just didn't want anyone else to feel the way I did that day." Officer Daniels remained a close friend and mentor to Malik. They often met for lunch, where they discussed everything from Malik's school projects to the ongoing efforts for social justice in their community. "You know," Daniels said one afternoon, "you've taught me a lot too, Malik. People think cops are supposed to have all the answers, but sometimes it takes a kid to remind us what really matters." Malik grinned. "Thanks, Officer Daniels. I couldn't have done any of this without you." As time went on, Malik's story became a symbol of resilience and transformation. The art exhibit that had once been his destination now hosted an annual event called Voices of Change, showcasing stories of people who had overcome adversity and inspired others. Malik was always a guest of honor, his journey forever etched into the fabric of the community. One evening, as Malik stood before the painting inspired by his story, he reflected on how far he had come. The vibrant colors swirled together, representing hope, courage, and the power of standing up for what's right. His mother joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Proud of yourself?" she asked gently. Malik nodded. "Yeah, but this isn't just my story. It's about all the people who stood up with me. You, Officer Daniels, and everyone who believed things could get better." As the event drew to a close, Malik took one last look at the painting. It was a reminder that even in the face of injustice, there was always room for hope and change. And Malik knew one thing for certain. He would never stop using his voice to make a difference.